G'day people, my name's Rob, I'm from Astral Tech Computers. Today we've got the privilege of reviewing an Xbox Elite controller. Now, we're not just reviewing the original one that we have here, but in fact the one that came out just before Christmas last year. Because of stock availability and difficulty in obtaining one, we finally got our hands on the next batch of stock that's arrived, and we've got the Xbox Elite Series 2 version controller here ready to go. Now it's not a complete unboxing because just to let you in on a little secret, I did unbox it previously a little earlier just to make sure that it was functional, but as well as not only functional, also popped it on charge per se. And I would recommend having it on charge for the required period of time it takes to fully charge it, plus another half the amount of time. Generally with lithium batteries, just like your mobiles and whatnot, you want to charge that first charge for as excessively as possible to make sure that you can maximize the power life cycle of the battery per se and it's through its longevity. So before we get stuck into it, essentially we've got a Series 2 Elite. Now just off the bat, there's a few differences that I'm going to mention as opposed to the original Elite, and that's that you don't need a dongle anymore. So you'd have to buy a dongle separately if you wanted to use the Elite controller wirelessly. That costs you an extra $30 or $40 Australian dollars on top of the $220 price tag, let alone the fact that the batteries in this had to be replaced because they never had a rechargeable battery. So every now and then you'd find yourself having to replace the batteries at the worst possible time. So putting what essentially is one of the better controllers still out there aside, it brings us to what is our Series 2 Elite and our unboxing of this. So straight off the bat, it's got some hefty weight to it. It's actually missing the charging cord in it. I've actually got it just plugged in over there because I did have it on charge, like I said, and for a fair amount of time. Like realistically, it was probably about 6 hours or so, I'd say. It didn't seem to be half charged when it arrived. If it was, then it seriously is a long charge cycle, and it doesn't specify in the user manual how long the charge cycle is meant to go for. They've got three set values now rather than two, meaning that you can adjust it threefold, and you can have super fine responsive triggers, which is really good for FPSs where you don't require to cock a weapon or anything like that, and you just want that instant pull and instant dismissal to occur as quickly as possible. That in coinciding with the software that's available for the version or Series 2 Elite really makes you shine in that sort of department, providing that you've got that stuff enabled in the software as well. But you have to remember to enable that, otherwise you could still be at a disadvantage if you're playing PC against macro wielding keyboard and mice players and whatnot. Everything that brings us back into a semblance of balance is a good step in the right direction. I don't think you should hate on people for being keyboard and mouse players or controller players, but if we can have a semblance of balance, then it means everyone can have the same amount of fun. Yeah, so on top of the triggers having the additional pull, the other major feature, which there's something which I noticed they didn't address, and that's that the buttons themselves are still like your generic Xbox buttons, and as opposed to say like the Razer Sabertooth controllers, I think or the Wolverine controllers, whatever they're called, the Razer ones, they've got mouse clicky buttons which have a much higher response time per click. Those controllers suffer because of some sort of programming that's involved with them and how it interacts with the Microsoft Windows programming. as opposed to Xbox controllers, and they actually suffer milliseconds there, but their response time on the button presses are quicker than what these are offering here, and they still haven't changed this over, so they're still using generic buttons here. They work for donkey's years, so I guess they still suit the job. I would prefer a more premium grade button available on the Elites as well, especially considering the amount and the markup that you're paying for these controllers, which is at least $150 to $170 more than your standard $80 Xbox controller in Australia, because these are retailing for $249 currently, and at the moment I've seen them go for as much as $315 on sites like catch.com.au, which are meant to promote specials per se, but also it seems like they're capitalizing on the lack of stock availability of these controllers currently. So all I can suggest, if you're interested in one at the moment, pre-order it, and we'll just get back into reviewing this. So another major change which really appealed to me was the fact that you can adjust the thumbsticks through a torque wrench. And what that means is, through the key that's provided, all you have to do is lift out the thumbstick per se, and you just either go clockwise, and by turning clockwise you make the torque more resistant, or by turning anti-clockwise you make the torque less resistant. And you've got 3 settings available. I've currently got my right thumbstick set at the maximum torque and my left thumbstick set at an intermediate level, just because the left thumbsticks I'm sort of used to being as maneuverable as possible regarding moving in FPSs and whatnot. And my right thumbstick, I've got a heavy thumb, so I like just like a heavy foot on the accelerator. I like to have a lot more control on, be it on the hardware level as well as the software level, if possible, by say minimizing dead zones and whatnot, which are available in the software per se as well. And that includes dead zones in your triggers and dead zones in your thumbsticks and whatnot. And that's available on the Accessories Xbox app, which is available for download from the Microsoft Store, as well as I believe through Xbox, but we're referring to PC currently, and how it works per se. Apart from this, you get the charger with it. So before, what was here was just a little stand. Now you've actually got a charging dock. The cool thing is you can place the controller back in the case and actually have it charged from the side there. You can have it completely closed and charging the whole time, and then when you're ready to go, you can just leave with the controller and you don't have to take the charger with you, or you may pop it into here. Otherwise you can, and if you're eager to play with it at the beginning, I suggest hooking it up through here, through the USB-C port that's provided. Continuously have it charging while you're using it until the time that you stop using it, and then charge it up fully if you're eager to use it, just to maximize the lifespan of the battery. Okay, you may actually hinder the battery longevity by utilizing it straight away, but that's the only sort of loophole I can see that's going to stop you from completely making the battery characters. So on top of this, what we also agreed with, we have the additional paddles which are already attached. I've actually popped them back into their corresponding spots in the case. You do also get a couple of extra thumbsticks which are very similar in length to these ones and very similar in feel, so I don't really see the point. But you also get a longer one and a shorter one, which generally provides for finer control, the longer stemmed thumbsticks. Regarding, say, sniping and things like that, that's where they really become useful. If you're inclined to, then I suggest using it. But that in unison with the hardware level torque availability makes that control really super awesome. So you don't feel jagged in your approach, and you're sort of getting back a semblance of this mechanical nature which should be advantageous to you, not all this digital crap that it gives you millisecond response times and that, and that's what your Cherry keyboards and that are essentially doing. Mechanical keyboards which are digitally enhanced. So yeah, it's something that we've got one back on the keyboard and mouse players here, and if you seriously look into it, and some games and the way controller development has occurred for the games aren't necessarily designed for controllers, but they've actually placed a lot of emphasis on advanced look controls, say in Apex Legends, which can really improve your gameplay if you spend a little bit of time in the firing range, if you're inclined to use a controller, and just setting it up exactly the way you want. I suggest being able to do things like 360 spins, as well as shooting around a player that's on the ground and doing 360s around them, and then also on top of that, fine tuning then your aim down sights per se and everything else around that, so that you've got a combination of being able to maneuver quickly but not too fast as to lose your strength in aiming and whatnot. And this is why the hardware and everything like that aspects of the Elite become really prevalent and really beneficial through its implementation in the new Series 2 Elite controllers. Okay, so I'm not going to show you how to play some video games. The accessories app is where you're going to find all the nitty-gritty stuff regarding these. So once you get them, just download it from the App Store and you're ready to go. You have to essentially discover the device as a Bluetooth device. Understand that if you're doing that on PC, then first you have to discover it. As soon as you discover it, you can have the app loaded up. The app will also acknowledge that the controller's been discovered, and you'll just be running through it. If you owned an Elite or had the privilege of owning the original Elite, then if you've got any saved profiles, you can carry them over to your Series 2, and it gives you the luxury of not having to set it up completely from scratch, unless you're inclined to do so because you just want a fresh start or whatever, or setting it up for a different game per se. Yeah, so all in all, I think it has been a vast improvement. The fact that the batteries don't have to be replaced, you don't have to buy an additional dongle. It does cost an extra $30 more, but not when you factor in the dongle price and the batteries that you continuously have to replace with the Elite. On top of that, it's got additional hardware features. Some things I wish they could still improve on. Buttons per se could be a little bit more clicky, like a mouse button. The hardware torque wrench specific thumbsticks could be changed to the level that the user desires and then locked in. That availability would be like a Series 3 upgrade, I'd hope. Because I was always under the impression that was what was going to happen in the beginning, until I actually saw it at a Gamescom that it was actually 3 settings. So then you just have to hope that one of those settings actually suits your play style. Otherwise, it's just a waste and a wasted gimmick per se. But in my regards, it does suit my play style, and I really enjoy the controllers. I find because Microsoft has the luxury of making a fair amount of them, you get a slightly more premium product for slightly less. It is priced, give or take, in a debatable manner, at that $250 Australian mark. But on the other hand, you've got scuff controls, which will easily cost you $350 plus for similar features. So as a premium controller, I'll probably say it's going to be close to, if not one of the best for the 2020 year as well, upcoming 2020 year. And I hope I get as much lifespan as I have out of the Elite. I've used that Elite for over 1,500 to 2,000 hours already, and it still hasn't missed a beat or skipped a beat. And I hope that this one gives me the same longevity. It just means I like to have a spare. It hasn't stopped me from buying another item per se. Especially with innovation, you're inclined to buy more items if you've got the luxury of doing so. So hopefully they haven't cheapened out, and this one for some reason doesn't work for as long, because that'll sort of suck, because then I'll end up probably losing 2 controls at the same time. But yeah, that was. My name's Rob. I'm from Tech Computers. I hope you got something out of this. And if you're inclined on getting the Series 2 Elite, by all means, I suggest you do so. Just make sure you pre-order it as soon as possible because stock is still difficult to come by. Anyway, peace out, peeps.